The northeast of England is an area that throughout history has famously been neglected by the English government. Unemployment is rife, but the one undying passion that unites people in this area is football. In 1879, AFC Sunderland was founded by a group of school teachers and formally established 1 year later. In 1890, the club became a member of the Football League and an inaugural member of the Old First Division, where they remained for 68 years, winning a total of 6 league titles along the way and establishing themselves as one of England's most successful football clubs. During this time, Roker Park would become the home of Sunderland, and the infamous Roker Roar would rock the northeast for almost a century until moving to the Stadium of Light in 1997. Club legends like Rach Carter, Charlie Hurley and club record goalscorer Bobby Gurney laid down a legacy for generations to follow. So how did a club whose trophy cabinet boasts 6 Division 1 titles and 2 FA Cups, backed by one of the country's greatest fan bases, end up playing in the third tier of English football for 4 years, starved of the success that their history boasts? That's exactly what we're about to find out today. We'll start the story in the 2006-2007 Championship season. Sunderland are bottom of the table and winless in 5 under manager and chairman Niall Quinn. Following Quinn famously sacking himself, Manchester United icon Roy Keane was appointed as manager and led the Mackems to a miraculous turnaround that saw them win the league in spectacular fashion. 2 years later, however, in May 2009, Ellis Short completed a deal that saw him become the main shareholder and owner of Sunderland, with his intention to finance the club into becoming a regular top half Premier League side. This involvement with the American businessman and the club was to be the beginning of Sunderland's downfall. During the early years of his time at the club, he committed a lot of money to player signings and saw Sunderland record their highest league finish over their decade in the Prem, with a 10th place finish under Steve Bruce in the 2009-2010 season. But what soon showed was a man in charge who had a lot of money and no clue what to do with it. In October 2011, club legend Niall Quinn was replaced by Shaw as the chairman of the club, with Quinn's eventual departure from the Sunderland board coming 4 months after. With the void of a footballing brain on the board to help make the decisions, this moment was a huge turning point that saw the beginning of Sunderland's demise. Ellis Shaw implemented a director of football system to navigate Sunderland's transfer operations, making them one of the first English clubs to adopt this approach. This, however, was to detrimental effect, with Roberto De Fanti wasting almost 30 million in the 2013 summer transfer window. Josie Altidore and Emmanuel Giaccherini were the marquee signings, and unsurprisingly, De Fanti was replaced by Lee Congerton before January 2013, but transfer dealings hardly improved. Jermaine Defoe and Patrick Van Arnholt marked 2 good signings during Congerton's time at the Stadium of Light, but Jack Rodwell at 10 million would prove to be one of the worst signings in Sunderland's history. And transfers weren't the only poor decisions being made by Shaw. Their managerial recruitments were no better. The appointment of Paolo Di Canio at the end of March 2013 saw the start of an abysmal managerial merry-go-round take place at the Stadium of Light. He replaced Martin O'Neill, and following his appointment, club vice-chairman David Miliband resigned due to Di Canio's past political statements supporting fascism. Another key figure of the club's hierarchy gone. O'Neill had left Di Canio the job of resurrecting Sunderland's season that had seen them amass only 31 points in 31 games. But following a 2-1 away defeat to Chelsea in his first game in charge, Di Canio's next game saw Sunderland make history. Facing fierce rivals Newcastle, Sunderland secured their first away win against the Magpies in 13 years through goals from Stefan Sessegnon, Adam Johnson and David Vaughan, lifting them 3 points clear of the relegation zone in 15th place. A mixed set of results that included a home win against Everton and that heavy loss to Aston Villa, Sunderland secured Premier League safety under Di Canio. However, next season saw him forced to use a weaker squad consisting of 13 players signed by De Fanti, whilst also managing the losses of Simon Mignolet and Stefan Sessegnon. He lasted only 5 games the following season and 13 in total for Sunderland before facing the sack after his brutal and vitriolic criticism of the players led them to complain to Sunderland Chief Executive Officer Margaret Byrne, an accusation that Di Canio denies. Gus Poyet was the next man to take the helm, and with Sunderland still at the bottom of the table in April, his appointment looked to be a disaster. He somehow managed to turn this around, however, and in Sunderland's last 6 games of the 2013-14 season, they won 4, including victories against Chelsea and Premier League holders Manchester United, narrowly securing their status as a Premier League club once again. On the 16th of March 2015, Poyet was sacked and replaced by Dick Advocat, who managed to keep them up by 3 points, winning their last 2 games to ensure survival. Advocat resigned the following season after another poor start to their campaign, and for yet another season, a great escape was required. So who better to bring in than Big Sam Allardyce? In Sunderland's last 11 games that season, Allardyce lost only 1 game, beating Chelsea and Everton once more to secure their Premier League safety for another season. Following yet another great escape, escape, Sam Allardyce left Sunderland to take the England job as fans grew tired of Sunderland's constant struggles in the league and false promises from the chairman Ellis Short. The reaction to these process saw the hiring of David Moyes as a controversial appointment that filled yet another Sunderland managerial void. By September, Sunderland found themselves at the bottom of the Premier League table once again and remained there for the rest of the season, with a 1-0 loss at home to Bournemouth ending their slim chances at survival. David Moyes' side were relegated from the Premier League after 10 years in the top flight, and Sunderland's string of great escapes were over. After reckless spending, a constant changing of the manager, and an owner who wanted out, Sunderland were in the Championship.
My realistic hopes for us when we got relegated from the Premier League was actually for us to go straight back up again. We'd been in the Premier League before that for 10 seasons, and I honestly thought that we would just go straight back up again. What was needed was for us to invest in the right players, and unfortunately we didn't do that. I did say I thought that we would go out of the Premier League at the first time of asking, and I was correct, but we went the wrong way and ended up, unfortunately, in League One.
Ellis Short had invested a lot into the club, but this season saw a worrying change, with transfer investment seemingly non-existent. Just under £1.5 million was invested before the season started, until a flurry of free transfers were rushed together, consisting of Callum McManaman and Mark Wilson in the closing days of the transfer window. David Moyes was relieved of his duties and replaced by Simon Grayson, with a number of key players following Moyes out of Sunderland. Jordan Pickford, Seb Larsson, Fabio Borini and Jermaine Defoe characterised the quality that was leaving the Stadium of Light and enforcing even more difficulties on the new manager Simon Grayson. To his displeasure, as well as the fans and key players like Lee Cattermole, who publicly criticised the club, Sunderland would be competing the Championship season with a squad lacking in the quality and size necessary to compete for promotion back into the Premier League. In pre-season, the writing was seemingly on the wall for a tricky season, with a video posted on social media of experienced midfielder Darren Gibson in a drunken rant suggesting that his teammates weren't committed to the club. This, combined with a 5-0 pre-season loss at home to Celtic, set the tone for what was about to be an impossible job for Simon Grayson. He lasted 15 games before getting sacked, following a 3-3 draw with Bolton, leaving Sunderland on 10 points in 22nd place in the Championship. In 2019, on reflecting on his time at Sunderland with BT Sport, he described his time as having, quote, so many underlying problems and players on high wages that, quote, didn't want to be there. Simon Grayson was Sunderland's shortest serving manager in the club's history. Their next appointment was Chris Coleman, who 2 summers prior to his hiring had guided the Wales national team to the semi-finals of Euro 2016. A manager who inspired confidence, experience and the winning mentality that Sunderland desperately needed to keep them in the Championship. And his tenure started terrifically, with a 2-0 away win at Burton, soon followed by the club's first home win in 364 days, beating Fulham 1-0 through youngster Josh Maja's first league goal for the club. Hope was beginning to be restored for the first time in over a year, and it seemed like a Christmas miracle for Sunderland. Unfortunately, their recent history has been far from the fairy tale that fans had hoped for, and this narrative was to continue into the new year. In the January transfer window, signings were once again hard to come by, with 4 loans and 2 free transfers reflecting the lack of investment from Ellis Short into the first team. The 2 main reasons behind Ellis Short's reluctance to provide money for signings boiled down to his desire to sell the club and the high wages of current playing staff that made new signings harder to justify. And without question, the most famous incident of this is the Jack Rodwell saga. £60,000 a week and no pay decrease clause for Sunderland's relegation from the Premier League left him as the club's highest earner, despite him making extremely limited appearances since his arrival from Manchester City. Rodwell totalled 76 games in his time at Sunderland, and of the 43 games he started for the Black Cats, they only won 1 game, earning himself £4,700 per minute he played on the pitch and £299,000 per appearance. He remained at the club until the following season, where his contract was finally terminated. At the time, however, as a result of Rodwell's decision to stay, Sunderland were forced to sell players to allow the signings of players in positions that desperately needed strengthening. Strikers James Vaughan and Lewis Grabban were sold and had their loans terminated respectively. Their departure left a void up top that was barely filled. Youngster Ashley Fletcher joined the club on loan on deadline day, however he would only go on to register 2 goals and 2 assists by the end of the season. Following the promising start by Coleman's Sunderland side, picking up 8 points in his first 5 games in charge, results soon slipped back into old habits, registering only 18 points in their final 23 games of the season. On the 21st of April 2018, Sunderland faced relegation candidates Burton Albion in a must-win game that would see Sunderland relegated if they failed to do so. Sunderland took the lead in the 34th minute through a low slow drive from Paddy McNair outside the box and underneath the goalkeeper. As the game reached its conclusion, Sunderland looked as though they'd still have hope at staying up with 2 more games to go. However, in the 86th minute, disaster struck as former Sunderland striker Darren Bent headed in a rebound past a desperate Jason Steele, and Sunderland were on the brink of relegation once again. In extra time, Sunderland captain John O'Shea headed the ball onto the crossbars. The feeling around the Stadium of Light became more tense. Things were not going Sunderland's way. Their fate of relegation was seemingly confirmed in the 92nd minute when Liam Boyce headed Burton into a 2-1 lead, but things weren't finished there. The last kick of the game saw every Sunderland player thrown into the Burton penalty area waiting for the corner to be taken, and a goal line scramble ended with the ball in the back of the Burton net as Sunderland had a flicker of hope. But following protests from the Burton players and a conversation between the referee and the linesman, the goal was overturned and Sunderland were relegated with 2 games to go. A 2-0 away loss at Fulham and a 3-0 home win against Wolves cemented Sunderland's place at the bottom of the Championship. After 10 years of Premier League stability, back-to-back relegations meant that Sunderland will be playing League One football next season for only the 2nd time in their history. Relegation and the uncertainty of Ellis Short's ownership saw more key members of the club's staff move on to more secure roles elsewhere. And before the final game of the season, Ellis Short finally announced that he had cleared the club's debts and agreed for a takeover from a new ownership. But who were these new owners? A consortium of buyers known as Madrox, faced by 2 men, Stuart Donald and Charlie Methin. Their arrival at the end of a disastrous season in Sunderland's history breathed a new life into the club and its fan base with a promise of investment and a positive future. Something that Sunderland fans were all too used to hearing, but nowhere near used to seeing.
When Madrox took over, it was a very exciting time at the club. Ellis Short had been at Sunderland for a while, and although it started off very positively with him and investing in good players, unfortunately the money just dropped off and he wasn't putting any money in the club anymore. Obviously everyone was very excited for Madrox to come in, and well, the rest is history there. How wrong were we?
A mass clear out of staff and a restructuring of the way that the club operated saw the rebuild commence. The stadium seats were renovated and fit by the playing staff, supporters and the new owners themselves, and a new feeling was brought around the club: hope. Since these two arrived at the club, Sunderland's aim to bounce back up the leagues took longer than most would have initially expected. They could certainly talk the talk, but walking the walk was a different matter. There was perhaps an element of misfortune in their first season as owners, narrowly missing out promotion at the first attempt in the playoff final. Sunderland had finished 6 points off an automatic spot and were defeated by 3rd place Charlton in the 94th minute thanks to a Patrick Bower rebound. It was more heartbreak for Sunderland. The next season, the new head coach Phil Parkinson missed out on the playoffs altogether until Alex Neil guided Sunderland to playoff glory back to the Championship against Wycombe Wanderers in 2022. I actually attended this game and I got myself into an argument with a lovely Wycombe fan, so definitely go and check that out if you haven't already. 4 seasons of League One football and Sunderland had taken the long-awaited first step on their journey back to the Premier League and were finally in the Championship. As for their first season in the Championship, Sunderland had yet another new head coach, Tony Mowbray, who brought the squad together to reach the Championship playoffs at the first time of asking. Were Sunderland about to undo their 2-year consecutive relegations with a belated back-to-back promotion to the Premier League? Let's just remember it is Sunderland that we're talking about here, and they don't like to make things easy for themselves. With key figures like Lee Catamol a distant figure of the past for Sunderland, it was the performances of key men like Ross Stewart and Manchester United loanee Amad Diallo who had contributed massively to a wonderful team performance in the Championship season. Sunderland went 1-0 down at home to Luton in the playoff semi-finals through Elijah Adebayo. However, Sunderland pulled a goal back before half-time through a wonderful free-kick routine finished by Amad Diallo. In the 62nd minute, the comeback was complete with Clark's cross headed into the bottom corner by Trey Hume, and the first leg comeback was complete. Unfortunately, Sunderland's second leg performance wasn't enough to see out their home result, and they lost 2-0 at Luton, ending their promotion hopes with a 3-2 loss on aggregate, meaning that next season is going to be Championship football once more for the Black Cats. Luton went on to seal promotion to the Premier League in dramatic style, which I also vlogged, so definitely go and check that out, and maybe not if you're a Sunderland fan. Now, under another ownership change, Donald and Methin have sold their remaining shares in Sunderland after 3 3 years of trying to get out of their involvement with the club. In their time at Sunderland, an upbeat start full of hope and promise resulted in a long-winded and painstaking journey back into the Championship, with many fans questioning their true intent of owning Sunderland, most of which labelled it as a get-rich-quick scheme. So where does Sunderland go from here? A strong squad with reasonable depth and quality, a forever loyal fan base, and another new set of owners who promise investment.
So after a fantastic season back in the Championship, without getting into that playoff spot, yes, we didn't get to the final, yes, we didn't go back to the Premier League, but to get to that playoff position and have a crack at it against the eventual winner who are now in the Premier League was amazing. I mean, no one could have dreamt of a better start back in the Championship. With our young squad and our ambitious owners who are pumping money, we've already made 4 signings, including Joe Bellingham so far this season. We finished 6th last season. I think we can excel and do a little bit better, if not the same. I think we're going to be in for another successful season at Sunderland Football Club.
It's a time of uncertainty for what these new owners will actually bring, but Sunderland is in a far better position to compete for a place in the 2024-25 Premier League season, and hopefully we'll see them make a return soon. And with that, the Sunderland documentary is over. I hope that you guys have enjoyed, and please let me know if you want to see any more of these types of videos. Comment down below which teams, which players you want to see me make documentaries on. I just want to say a massive thank you to Kyle for joining me on this video. It always helps to have a Sunderland fan talk about the club that they love, so definitely go and check him out, guys, because he goes to Sunderland games, non-league games, and does some great vlogs that are well worth the watch. And finally, thank you to you guys for watching. As I say, I hope you have enjoyed. I will see you guys in more videos like this very soon, more football vlogs and general football content, so subscribe to make sure that you don't miss, guys. Comment down below what you think of these videos, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care as always. Peace and love.